Welcome back to Game Time Discussions. I'm Emery Cuzzy. I'm here with Dustin Zimmerman, and we are going to be kicking off non-Power 5 teams here, talking about all the teams that have a chance for the last bid in the college football playoff. We've already done all the Power 4 teams. We don't do Pac-12 because there's only 2 teams. If you want us to predict them, I guess we could do that later. Just let us know, but we can do that in a short. We don't have to do this in a long one. But yeah, we've done the Pac-12. We've done the Big 10, Big 12, ACC, and SEC. So if you want to go check out those videos are a lot of fun. The SEC was recently came out, getting a lot of steam. It was a lot of fun. Yeah. Anything you want to talk about before we get going?
I mean, my favorite conference will be discussed here. We got some action going on,
Okay.
So be ready.
Absolutely. We're not going to start with the MAC. We're going to actually start off with the American Conference. Starting off with the 3 teams that seem to have the best odds to make it, have the best schedules or combination of schedules plus odds plus everything, player ability. Starting off with Tulane. Tulane is getting some fun stuff about Tulane is Jeff Retzloff is actually transferring there, or I don't even know if it's considered transferring. I guess he's walking on because he is now not part of the BYU, the old BYU whole thing. He is now not at BYU because of situations we don't talk about on our screen here, but lots of things happening. They did lose some players. Darian Mensah went to Duke, so they're replacing him with possibly Jeff Retzloff. Mekhi Hughes going to Oregon, and then both 2 of their receivers going to the NFL. So it's just this team is losing a few players, but every single year Tulane revamps, is really good. I'm excited to see this team. I think that this team is one of my favorite teams to possibly push for that last spot in the college football playoff.
Yeah, they're led by John Summerall now. Tulane really improved when they had Willie Fritz there. He's gone. He's obviously at Houston now. But John Summerall did a really good job when he was with Troy, and even last year did well with Tulane. So I expect him to keep it up. And as you can see with our predictions, we both expect them to run the table in their conference. The only losses I have for them are Duke and Ole Miss. I have to assume those are the same for you, based on just their schedule.
I think the outer conference schedule actually kind of screws them here, because if they can find a win between Duke and Ole Miss, I think that they could really be like, we're 11-1. We beat a Power 5 team. We should get in. We should be the team that gets in over some of the teams we'll talk about later, your normal Boise State, UNLV, and stuff like that from the Mountain West. So I think that this is a team that has a chance to get in. And they have the hardest strength of schedule in the American Conference, giving them even more of a chance to be like, look, we put our stamp, even knowing we play in a lesser conference, we are good enough to play with y'all. And I think that that's important. Their FPI rank, which is what ESPN uses to rank all the teams, all 140, I believe.
136.
136 teams. They are 36th, which is way higher than anybody else in this conference, actually higher than almost anybody on this video that we're going to talk about. So they're a super interesting team, and I think they have an opportunity, like I said, to make it in conference. They do get some of the harder teams. They do play Memphis, who we're about to talk about. They play at UTSA. They play ECU. They play versus Florida Atlantic. Basically, the American kind of beats itself up if you look at it, but Tulane has constantly been a 6, 7, or 8 win team in the conference, and I think that happens again this year, basically.
Yeah, only thing I'll add on here is that their 3rd game of the year is against Duke, so it's going to be likely a 2-0 Tulane and a 2-0 Duke facing off with, like you said, Darian Mensah leaving Tulane last year, or in the transfer portal this recent offseason to Duke. So
right,
that former quarterback play team and with potentially playoff odds on the line.
Yeah, very, very fun, interesting game when you talk about just like that dynamic of it. And we have a lot of praise for Duke. We had them going 9-3, or at least I had them going 9-3. I don't remember off the top of my head what your schedule prediction was for them, but I think that's a really good team too. So at the same time, Tulane is going to have a test there. Ole Miss is a test, all that stuff. Yep. Next up, though, we have the Memphis Tigers. They actually have better odds to make the college football playoff, and that just has to do with the fact that their schedule is so much easier than Tulane. They're not nearly as close. They're 65th in the FPI, much farther down. And disclaimer, all the college football odds will be FanDuel odds. So we got these from FanDuel because they are already on and tracking it. So we wanted to make sure we got
They
to
were
let
the
y'all know
only
that.
place we could find them
Yes, exactly.
in
Um,
totality.
yeah, they are going to basically replace all of their skill players. If you look at some of the guys that they had last year, Seth Hennigan is probably the most decorated Memphis quarterback of all time. He got drafted to the Jacksonville Jaguars. He broke a bunch of records for them, and he was really successful there. Mo Anderson Jr. He's now in the NFL. I don't know that. I think he's still a free agent. I think he's gonna, an undrafted guy, but could find a team. And then Rock Taylor is now at Pittsburgh, so that's basically the bulk of their team. They did bring in Brendan Lewis from Nevada, and that's who they're kind of like holding their hat on and hoping that can take over at the quarterback position. This team uses the transfer portal to really go out and get a bunch of guys, though. 15 total possible starters next year. I think that truly this is a good Memphis team. I have them going 9-3, 6-2 in conference, but I don't think they're going to come out unscathed. I don't think that they're good enough for those 880 odds, basically, in my opinion. I think they're probably closer to 1500 plus 1500. So I do think they have some games that are tough. It's not like they're just playing easy games. They have a big bunch of games in the top half of this conference. So talent's good, but they have to jive, and they also have to, win. Win all these closer games at the top of the conference, in my opinion, including Tulane that we just talked about.
Yeah, Memphis definitely has slightly easier. They do play Arkansas out of conference, but that's the
Mm-hmm.
only real big school they play. But they do have to play teams like Georgia State, who we saw upset Vanderbilt last year or 2 years ago, and then they play Troy, who we just talked about. They play Tulane, who we both expect Tulane to win that game, and then they finished their year with Navy. So, while the schedule in totality is easier, I don't think they're as good as Tulane is, especially when you're bringing all those new guys together. And we're not talking about guys who have been elite by any means. At this point, at least, for their full transfer portal. So, it's hard to expect them to all come together and pull off an 11-1 or 12-0 season, which you kind of have to do when you're in a conference like the American Conference, trying to get that last either an at-large bid or the automatic qualifier.
For sure. And I do want to shout out this fact that, Tulane is so far ahead when it comes to the FPI and what ESPN at least expects of this team. If you're going to talk about the FPI for Memphis, they're 65th. And then there's like 4 other teams in the next 10 from this conference. So you have 68th South Florida. You have UTSA, who's at 70th. You have Eastern Carolina, who's at 72nd. Florida Atlantic, who's at 76th. So there's a lot of teams in this range of just they're all about the same level and ability. So how would I just be like, oh yeah, Memphis is just going to beat them all and be very, come out unscathed and not have an issue with any of those teams? Tulane, on the other hand, I'm like, hey, this team is really good and they will beat all those teams. They just happen to have to play the hardest non-conference schedule of any of the teams in this conference itself. So that's my big spiel on them. Next up is Navy, the midshipmen. Navy is the lowest on this group of the FPI. They're 81st, but they have the easiest schedule by far. That's why we both have them at 10-2. Their schedule kind of, and I know it says 87th. I know that the strength of schedule by ESPN, we do listen, of course, to ESPN as much as possible. But when you do a actual schedule breakdown and you go through them all, you see that Navy kind of comes out where it's like, oh, they play Rice non-conference. They play Air Force non-conference, Temple non-conference. The bulk of the difficult games, and if you're going to be let's point out one game, it's Notre Dame. Notre Dame is one that really pushes this schedule way up compared to everybody else.
That number up.
Yeah, exactly. Because Notre Dame is currently top 10 overall. So that's the one that really pushes it up. Truly, I don't think that this team has any other teams on their schedule that they couldn't beat, if that makes sense. So that's a big thing for me. Toughest conference games, not Notre Dame, is Florida Atlantic, South Florida, and then they play Memphis at Memphis. But basically, I think the Memphis versus Navy game could be the decision for who plays in the conference championship, basically, versus Tulane on the other side. They're returning their 3 best players, in my opinion, so that's good. Blake Horvath, who was really the reason they have a shot at anything for Navy last year, and they did so well, it's because of him. He was their quarterback who was, they run a run and gun. They don't actually just, throw the ball. but he had 1,257 rushing yards, 17 touchdowns.
Mm-hmm.
Their number one running back is back, and Alex Texa. He had 568 yards, 8 touchdowns, and then their number one receiver / slot receiver, tight end. I'm sorry, running back. He does both because all they do is run the ball. Is also back in Eli Heidenreich. So all those guys are really important.
Yeah, it's very difficult for these military schools to replenish and replace, like we've talked about so many times with transfer portal rankings with these the Power Five schools when we were doing those, because the military schools don't use the transfer portal, or at least if they do, it's a very different situation. And football's not exactly the number one reason per se. They're usually going for the military part, and then same with guys leaving. Though you don't typically have guys leaving, hence why Horvath is still there. But it does make it difficult for them to replenish, replace, and improve, even like we see with these other schools where they kind of have lower guys transfer out and then bring in the newer or guys who have been proven to be productive. So it's hard to predict what they're going to do, especially in this changing landscape of college football.
Of course.
And all that being said, I think Tulane is better than regardless. And when we're talking about making the playoff, these teams have to win their championship, and they really can't afford to lose more than one game for their whole season, which makes this American Conference really difficult to expect one of them to make that last spot, unless, like we said, Tulane probably has the best odds if they can pull off a win against either Duke or Ole Miss.
Yeah, and then win out every other game because they would be 12-1 with the American Conference Championship. You have a case, at least at that point, in my opinion.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, I agree completely. Let's go over, though. Let's talk about the Sun Belt Conference. There's 3 teams here also. I had to put Texas State in there. Y'all know me. But and Texas State, I mean, last year we had that big, short where Texas State was going to beat Arizona State. No one expected Arizona State to actually go to the to the playoffs either.
Yeah.
But right now James Madison is kind of far and away the team that has the best college football odds. You put them at 11-1, 9-3. I put them at 9-3, 6-2. That's not the correct thing. If you'll change that for me, you put them at 8-0. Sorry. But 11-1, 8-0, 9-3, 8-6-2. I really just think it's really hard for me to just think that a Sunbelt team is going to come out unscathed, because every single year we beat each other up. Every year. It does not matter. There's always at least 2 or 3 losses in conference. The conference schedule is always super close. And that's why I actually had them losing 2 games. It's also, though, like, there's some good players on all 3 of these teams. James Madison, Matthew Sluka, and I'll let you probably go over Matthew Sluka, actually. But he is an interesting player transferring from UNLV. They added 7 new wide receivers in the portal. Defense, highlighted by safety Jacob Thomas, who was the leading tackler and second in interceptions last year. Like, there's good players. So I think that this group is good. I hate the Sun Belt because they just beat each other up every single year. And it really sucks because then they'll never get anybody into the college football playoff. They'll never get anybody in the top 25, unfortunately, because they lose games they're not supposed to, and they win games they're not supposed to, and it's a constant thing with all the Sun Belt teams.
There's a reason it's called the Fun Belt.
Absolutely.
It's a lot of fun to watch. Upsets are made to happen in the Fun Belt. James Madison's hardest game is going to be against Louisville, and that game is going to be at Louisville. So, that's where their one loss comes from for me. But after that, they play Liberty, Georgia Southern, Georgia State, the Raging Cajuns, Louisiana, Old Dominion. They're at Texas State, at Marshall, but then they host App State and Washington State, and then end it on the road at Coastal Carolina. And this isn't the Coastal Carolina from a few years ago when they were a team actually to be reckoned with. And then Washington State has obviously fallen off a cliff since the Pac-12 dismantled. Marshall lost every good player they had last year, including Mike Green, who's now in the NFL. And then a lot of their other hard games they're hosting. And then Liberty, they lost their quarterbacks. We'll actually talk about Liberty here in a little bit. But all of that, if James Madison can get it, essentially win the games they're supposed to win and be competitive in the games that they're not supposed to win, then they can go 11-1. Now, will they? The question isn't going to be can they pull off the upset against Louisville. It's can they hold on to wins they should get, like Liberty, Marshall, those kinds of games, Texas State even,
Yeah.
where it's going to be a little bit more difficult.
Yeah, they do play at Texas State, at Marshall, in
Yeah.
conference, at Georgia State, but and against the Raging Cajuns at home,
Right.
who the Raging Cajuns are actually the highest FPI ranked team in this group. They're the highest in the whole Sun Belt. So yeah, they have to win the games they're supposed to win, and upset those games that they're not supposed to. Almost, it's going to be really hard to see anybody go out 8-0 in this group, in my personal
Yeah.
opinion. I know that you have it as 8-0. I just don't. Man, I watch Sun Belt football, and it's tough to watch sometimes because, like Texas State losing Old Dominion last year, we just can't have that. You know what I mean?
So,
Texas
I
State.
mean,
Go
I
ahead.
was going
Sorry.
to say the last thing is we didn't talk about Sluker. I wanted to mention with
Oh yeah, that's
Sluka,
right.
we talked about him last year because he had the huge scandal of essentially quitting on his team and doing a holdout in college because they weren't going to honor. I don't remember what it was, if they weren't going to honor the NIL or his agent said, "Hey, you're
You need
doing really
more.
good. You can get more. You should
That's what
just
they asked.
stop
Yeah.
playing until." And then he stopped. Which he's essentially the equivalent of like Lane Kiffin for me right now of players. I absolutely hate it that I love him because he's so fun to watch.
Sure.
And I want to see him do well. But then in the back of my mind, I'm like, what was that move? That's not something we need here. And it's the
Yeah.
same when I'm watching Ole Miss. Lane Kiffin is such a jerk out there and such a drama queen. But then he does something insane or tweets something at halftime, and I'm like, oh, this guy's awesome. Never mind. I got to keep cheering for him. That's how
Yeah.
I feel about Sluka, but at QB.
Sure. I get it. I get it completely. Sluka is a very fun and interesting name to watch in the Sun Belt next year. Texas State. And you have them at 7-5. It's probably closer to what they'll go. I'll be honest. But I mean, I love my team, and I really
Yeah.
think that we've taken some steps in the right direction. We do have a lot of players that we're gonna have to basically restart, but we have depth, and we've done a really good job recently getting in players and keeping players. We are going to be graduating a bunch of good guys, though. Jordan McLeod, our starting quarterback, is gone. He was pretty impressive last year and was the Sun Belt Player of the Year 2 years ago at James Madison. We are going to be losing Ismail Mahdi to Arizona because he's going to be a graduate transfer. He was a return specialist and All-American for us a couple years ago. And then, Jaden Williams, Cole Wilson, and Joey Hobart are all going to be gone. So basically, we're losing 2,200 receiving yards and 19 touchdowns. But we did add some players in the transfer portal. I think DJ Kinney does a great job recruiting, and I think he's been consistent on that. We got some transfer quarterbacks. Tate Yarnell from Pittsburgh, and he was a Lake Travis product from down the street from us. We live close enough to Austin for that. Came in for Eli Holston last year when Eli was injured. And I would expect him to actually be the starter, but they are currently looking at Giovanni McCoy out of Oregon State, who got benched after the UNLV loss at Oregon State. So they think he will actually be the starter based on what our lads are showing. So I don't know, but that is, fun to see a nice quarterback battle. I'd expect it to be Yarnell over McCoy though. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, two different places, BetMGM and one of the other insiders have Texas State's win totals at 7.5. And I was checking because I looked at what your record for them was, and I was like, I'm 2 wins below. Let me make sure I'm not crazy. And nope, I'm right in line with them. So,
Sure.
but I grew up in the same city you did, same town you did. I love Texas State. It's fun to root for Texas State. We wanted them in the playoff last year. Would have been amazing. Would have been awesome. Problem is Texas State isn't this. The Texas State we had last year with Mahdi, McLeod, Ben Bell is not the Texas State we have this year. Now, I like GJ Kinney. I think he's a fantastic coach. I think even fantastic coaches have down years, and I think this is going to be his down year. And potentially it's a good thing for Texas State in the scheme of he might not leave, which was kind of what was questioned last year was if they do that good, he's not going to coach them anymore. And then they, had their games they fell off on, and then he stayed. So you might get another year out of him because he's such a good coach. He's going to move on to better things at some point.
Well,
But that said, Texas State's not going to the Pac-12 next year,
that's
so
what I
maybe
was
that
going to
is
say. Yeah,
maybe that is the better point now since all of that happened, everything
sure.
changed. I think this is going to be a get right year for them, though. More of a hey, let's make a bowl and get ready for the move, rather than see them really exceed expectations this year.
Sure. No, I get that. Like you said, I think that the whole going to the Pac-12 will probably keep him around.
Yeah,
Hopefully.
yeah,
He's
hopefully.
he's definitely for that level that we play at, the Sun Belt level. He's one of the better coaches that you're going to find. So, um, I would be okay with that. I have had, talks in with you before about how I feel about him, just as a
Yeah,
total. But there's no doubting that he's a good coach and that he is a great recruiter. That's
yeah,
always, great to have, right?
yeah.
So, going over though to Louisiana Raging Cajuns, they're actually, like I said, the highest FPI ranking. They're 71st out of all these teams, 71st overall, 112th strength of schedule. All these teams are in about the 111th, 112th, 119th.
It's a
Like that's
conference.
pretty solid strength of schedules because
Yeah,
because of their conference. Um, Not a lot of transfer movement this year, but biggest name is going to be their quarterback Walker Howard. He is transferring from Ole Miss. He was at LSU. Biggest returning group is the defensive line, highlighted by Cameron Whitfield and Jordan Lawson, who had 11 and a half total sacks together last year. I think that this team is in a good spot. And so if you don't know so I'm going to let you go over. Actually, I'm going to grab the other stuff so the Sun Belt is the only conference that has an East and a West. So basically, if you look at like who's in the East and the West, um, those are the teams. The top of those sides of the conference get to play each other in the conference championship. So obviously, two of these teams are on the East, and one of them's on the West. So we'll talk about all of that stuff after Dustin does his little spiel on the Raging Cajuns.
yeah. I mean, I really don't have a whole lot more to add. They didn't do much as far as changing from last year to this year. Their FPI is 71st and their SP plus is 74th. So they're returning the guys they had last year, and they're just not that big of returners in
Mm-hmm.
the grand scheme of it. Their strength of schedule is going to help them, but even with that, like you said earlier, they are probably the pinnacle of the Sun Belt beats up on each other. They have to play at James Madison, at South Alabama, and then host Texas State.
Right.
And I think James Madison is probably the only one I'm confident that that wins of those three. Otherwise, the other two, the South Alabama and Texas State, are truly a coin flip.
Sure.
South Alabama being led by Major Applewhite is always going to be a good team, high octane offense, and then Texas State, like we've said, is very much going to be that 7, 8, 9 win range, and they could win on any given night, but they can also unfortunately lose on any given night.
Right. So James Madison is the only one in the East Division of these three. So both Texas State and the Louisiana Raging Cajuns are in the West Division. So James Madison coming out of the East feels pretty locked in.
Yeah,
While one of these two teams is my pick to make it out of the West, I'm going to be picking Texas State based on schedule and how it all shook out. But at the same time, I have them at 9-3. Neither of these teams would make the college football playoffs for us if
nope.
that was the case. Dustin has James Madison at 11-1. If they did go on and win the Sun Belt at 12-1, you can make a case. It's still the Sun Belt. You still have the 119th strength of schedule, though, unfortunately. And I would not take them over a Tulane. I wouldn't take them over a Mountain West champion, basically. So
Yeah.
it's really hard to get one of these teams in, even though we want some Sun Belt, some fun belt in the conference, college football playoff.
Yeah, essentially no one in the Fun Belt can earn their way in. They kind of have to fall into a spot. They have to earn their way in terms of winning their games, but even winning them doing their work isn't enough to get in
Yeah,
by itself.
they need a little bit of luck. If they
Yeah,
go 12-1, if they go 13-0, sure, they're getting in. But that's probably the only way, right?
right.
Let's go over to Conference USA. A team that has some seriously nice playoff odds is the Liberty Flames. And the reason the Liberty Flames have the best playoff odds is because they also have the worst strength of schedule we're going to see today. That
Well,
is ridiculous,
you'll see.
right?
That's the
Yeah,
worst.
yeah.
It is
Sorry,
the
the
worst in the
lowest strength
country,
of
to be
schedule.
clear.
Period. Correct. 77th FPI, not that high compared to some of the teams we talked about. 36, like we said for Tulane earlier. But the strength of schedule being so low makes it just like so much easier to get around. If you just kind of look at the pivotal games, the actual pivotal games, it's at Jacksonville State, at Bowling Green, and versus James Madison, which James Madison we talked about. And we had I think we both probably had James Madison beating Liberty. That's probably your one loss. I actually had them losing 2 games in conference because I just don't trust them. And why would you, truly?
That's fair.
But at the same time, they have 3 total games that they could lose, and I gave them all of them.
Yeah, I mean, the one they should be most scared of is the Kennesaw State game at the end of the year, because last year, for anyone who doesn't remember, Emory said Liberty should be in the playoff, and I said, watch them lose to the
That's not what I
literal
said.
worst team in the country this week. And then the entire second half, I'm texting Emory every other play, hey, that was a drop. Hey, they really should have caught that. Hey, they couldn't get the first down. And then Kennesaw State ended up winning after storming the field 3 times or whatever, because the clock operator couldn't even figure out what their job was. It was fantastic.
So if I wouldn't have said
yeah.
anything, they would have beat Kennesaw State by 50. I'll just be
Probably
honest.
so, and probably gone undefeated with Caden Salter.
Right? So I
Which
jinxed
brings
them.
me to my issue with them is that they are probably going to, I have them, my record projection is based on don't screw up, basically.
Right.
They're going to lose the one game, which I think you said James Madison, right?
Yeah.
We both have that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they should beat Bowling Green. They should beat Jacksonville State. They should beat Maine. They're playing Maine New Mexico State. Come on. Delaware. This is
they got the low end of the Conference USA schedule.
I did not need to be told it was the 136 strength of schedule to know it was the 136 strength of schedule. Let's put it that way. I don't care that Caden Salter left or that whoever else left or that they can't beat the worst team in football when they're playing nobody this year. That being said, they're probably going to lose one or something and then I'll look stupid, but that's how it goes.
Yeah, I mean, I have them losing 2 games, and that's just because I don't trust them. But
how can you? Last year they let you down.
They did. Literally, the worst team in the number 136th ranked team beat them when they had Caden Salters. What are you talking about?
So funny.
But my case was different than that last year, and you just act like it was me saying they should get into the playoffs. I just said if they win out, they deserve to make the playoffs, and they didn't win out.
The story my way sounds way funnier.
It was tough. It was definitely terrible. Western Kentucky on the other side, they're plus 3,000 to make it because, of course, Western Kentucky actually has a schedule. They're playing in the 97th strength of schedule. That's better. That's worse than all of the Sun Belt teams that we talked about.
Yep.
And they're in the worst of the 2 conferences. So they actually have to play some teams. Plus 3,000 makes a lot of sense. I think they're just a good team that kind of goes along winning the games they should and losing the games they shouldn't. They play Sam Houston. They play Toledo, who we already talked about. I'd expect them to probably lose a game in conference, and then they play LSU. And so LSU literally brings them to another level of schedule versus this Liberty team, basically. It's freaking crazy how easy Liberty's is.
Yeah, the SEC loves to schedule cupcakes in the second to last week of the year. I still don't totally understand why, but that is what it is.
Sure.
But I think we both essentially have Western Kentucky as an absolute ceiling of 10-2 with losses to Toledo and LSU. And that's assuming they can beat Jacksonville State, which I believe we both actually said that they wouldn't do that anyways.
Sam Houston was my other one.
Oh, yeah, I had Jacksonville State to end the year.
Gotcha.
Coming off the LSU loss was the main reason.
Okay.
Just scheduling how that, you're not going to leave Death Valley feeling good. Wow, losing to Sam Houston to start off the year is quite the prediction. I love it.
Thank you.
I absolutely love the bold take.
Thank you.
I don't agree with it, but I love it. It's fantastic. Sure. But yeah, I mean, this is one of those things we're trying to find these teams that are potentially diamonds in the rough. And neither of us thinks a 9-3 Western Kentucky makes the playoff, to be very clear. But
No.
these are teams you're going to hear about or could potentially hear about if they pull off that one upset or two, where you go, oh, wait, man, I wish I had heard about this team at the beginning of the year when I was placing my plus 10,000 bets on or futures on whatever.
Right. To defend my Sam Houston pick, Sam Houston is ranked 111th FPI. Western Kentucky is 107th FPI. Okay, just saying, just putting it out there.
So the only thing I will say is why I prefer the SP Plus, especially at the beginning of the year, is because it's returning production. So we're not,
Sure.
and it values returning production more so than just the transfer. Sam
Hmm.
Houston's SP Plus is 107 versus Western Kentucky's is, oh, where'd it go? I'll do it on
Should
here.
be a little bit
Western
higher.
Kentucky's is 85th, so
Okay,
quite a bit higher. I think
gotcha.
at the beginning of the year, that's more important than FPI, because you're not trying to get those guys who are coming in, get cohesion together, that kind of thing.
Right, and this team, because we haven't really talked about Western Kentucky yet, this team does have 8 new starters on offense and 8 new starters on defense. You're
Yeah,
talking about returning production. A lot of these guys coming from other schools giving production.
yeah,
So I think that that's interesting how they jive in game one, and that was another reason why I thought Sam Houston could beat them is because like you're getting 16 new starters. Like let's see if they can actually play
yeah,
good together in
a
game
hundred
one versus
percent.
a Sam Houston team. That's kind of also another reason why I was like, hey, like Sam Houston has a chance here. Okay, then Sam Houston's pretty
But
good.
their place kicker and kickoff guy is named John Cannon.
Not a
So I
yeah.
need a cannon for a leg comments
No,
all
there you go.
throughout the year. I will make sure all kicking aficionados are well versed in John Cannon's kicking ability.
Cam Little. Um, all the fab. Let's go over to the next. It's going to be the Mid American Conference. Like we said, these are teams that we're hoping do well. And if they do well, you've already heard about them. You already know what's coming. Both Dustin has the Toledo Rockets going 9-3. I have them going 9-3 also, but I have them losing one more conference game. They're actually a very good team. This is one of the better
Yeah.
teams, plus 1800. It's one of those things where you talk about a team that has a couple of hard games, but has an opportunity to make it through. Overall, toughish schedule, but I think they're good enough in every game. They're at Miami of Ohio, which is a tough game, and they're at Bowling Green. They're versus this Northern Illinois team. Um, so I think that those are important. They did lose some players though on both sides of the ball that are also going to be important. Jerzon, Jawan Newton, and then of course Darius Alexander, who was a second round pick, and then Max and Hook. All those guys are really good, really important for this team last year. They're gonna have to find a way to replace them, but this might be you know, this is the dark horse in for the fifth spot or the fifth conference champion winner to make the playoffs because I think truly Toledo isn't getting enough love. This is a really good football team that has a chance, and they have 128th schedule, so they
Yeah.
also get that luxury, while Ohio does not.
Yeah, my three losses for them are that Miami, Ohio you brought up, and then they're going to be at Kentucky for their first game of the year, and then at Washington State later in the
Yeah.
year. Um, Kentucky Toledo is not a sure victory by any means for Kentucky.
Mm-hmm.
And if you watch the SEC video, you know my opinion on Mark Stoops, and it's not exactly that of praise. I would not be surprised if Toledo pulled off that upset. Washington State, we're not going to cover the two teams left in the pack for this year, but they're not going to be that good. So, also not a surprise. And then, of course, with Miami, Ohio, you can call that game a coin flip, essentially. If Toledo was home for that game, I would absolutely just chalk it up as a W for Toledo. So I'm a big fan of the Rockets this year as far as their potential. Their ceiling is high, mainly because of that strength of schedule. But it's just going to come down to can they pull off those games,
Right.
especially the mood setter, the vibe setter of the year being that first game against Kentucky. How can they handle that one? And then can they make sure they don't get too high either, especially going into a game like the Miami, Ohio one?
There's a very few teams I'm going to be like, hey, they could win every game in their schedule, like that they could win
Yeah.
out, and Toledo is one of them. If you just
Yep.
look at their schedule, you could be like, hey, like I think they could win every single game that they're up against, and it wouldn't surprise me.
Nope.
So that's why I think Toledo has an opportunity to be a 12-0 going into the MAC championship type team if
Yeah.
things break the correct way. Now, it's hard to win 12 games. We have them winning 9, both of us do, but if things break the right way, Toledo could be a 12-0 team, and that we're talking about, hey, we might have to put them into the college football playoff. They're plus 1,800. Those odds are actually not as long as you'd expect for a MAC team, and that's because of the strength of schedule. It's because of the other stuff that I just mentioned. I have them losing to Kentucky. Could be a flip, like we said. I have them losing to Northern Illinois, which obviously could also be a flip because it's in conference. Miami of Ohio is my other one. These are games that are winnable though, and
Yep.
Miami of Ohio is actually the best team, not named Toledo in this conference, or Ohio in this conference, if you ask me. So that game's at Miami of Ohio though, and that's one of the hardest games of the year for me, if you ask me.
Yep.
But then on the other side, you have Ohio, and they got screwed. That's basically how I got to put it, because they're a really good football team, and their 66th strength of schedule hurts them, and they run into some really good football teams early in the year. Play Rutgers first week, they play West Virginia second week, and then they play Ohio State third week. That is a gauntlet for a MAC team that wants to make a playoff push or wants to make a bowl game. Like, you're just getting slapped 3 games in a row. Like,
Yeah.
it's going to be so tough. But then they come out and they play their conference schedule. They start off by beating the hell out of Gardner Webb, who, that's why they have that game there. But
Yep.
before they get into conference, and then
Get right
they
game.
just have to, yeah, exactly. Got to get a get right game for a team like this. But then they go ahead and roll for the rest of the year. And you have them 8-0. I have them 7-1. It's those first 3 games that are going to screw them.
Yeah, and unfortunately, this isn't the March Madness. You don't get in just because of having a good strength of schedule and then dominating your conference.
Right.
There's extremely little room for error. Only 12 teams are getting in out of 136, which is less than 1 in 10. So when you're looking at it like that, it's very, and especially kind of just with the culture in sports nowadays, no one's happy with winning your bowl game that was on December 22nd.
Mm-hmm.
It's either make it to the playoff or the season was an absolute failure. We're going to lose all our recruits. No one's going to transfer here, yada, yada. Unless you're Texas Tech and somehow just blanket oil money everywhere.
Right.
But so with that, I don't know where the player's mindset's going to be going into that 4th week. Hey, yeah, they're going to smack Gardner Webb, or they should at least. If they don't, we have much bigger issues.
Right. We're
But those first 3
probably
games,
shouldn't be showing them.
I mean, and then you have to think about, I don't know if the 4-game redshirt rule is still in place. I want to say it is. So after getting your butts kicked for 3 straight games, and then you have to decide, hey, do you want to keep playing this year? Or are you gonna, withhold
Gonna
your
be a
eligibility?
Matt Sluka.
And yeah. So that's just unfortunately one of those other things we have to consider. And that could either derail the team, or they all stay, come together, play some of the most fun football on a 10:30 kickoff on Maction in the Midwest, and it's fantastic to watch, which I for one will be staying up and watching every late night Maction I can.
Sure.
But that is just one of those things where they're really screwed as far as the playoffs go. However, say Toledo runs the table like we said they can, and then they play in the conference championship, then they're playing devil's advocate. We can keep our, conference rivals out.
Sure.
And then that's a whole nother brand of Maction that I can't even imagine.
Well, some things I want to talk about this team, the actual players. Parker Navarro's back. He was their main guy last year. This Ohio team was really good last year. If y'all didn't know that, they played really well last year. So Parker Navarro's back. He was the thing. He makes this team go. He had 2,400 passing yards. He had over 1,000 rushing yards, 18 touchdowns on the ground. 3 out of 4 of their pass catchers are back, so that's always good. And then I actually love this story. So they also have a transfer running back. His name is C.I. Bangura. He started at Ohio, left to go to Minnesota, and now he's transferring back. Pretty funny situation. He didn't play at all at Minnesota, so he's coming back to Ohio, where he got on 2 years ago, where he was the main running back and like the main guy for them. So he had 178 rushing attempts, 811 yards, and 7 touchdowns a couple years ago, which is really good. And now he's going to be 2 years older, and he's going to have that opportunity to take over for this team. And they know what they're getting with him, which is cool. But like we said, tough schedule. I like some of the players. I think this is actually a really good team. I don't think it's going to matter, unfortunately, but they could play spoiler, like you said, against a Toledo team late in the year, which is fun.
Which is the most Maction thing possible, anyways.
Sure, absolutely. I agree. Okay, let's go on to the Mountain West because we have to talk about them, obviously. Dustin hates UNLV while I think that they're good. We'll start with Boise State. FPI rank is going to be 40th. SP Plus is 33rd. This team is really good. They don't really have the toughest schedule necessarily in the world. They do have to play Notre Dame, so that's hard. But really, I only see 2 losable games on their schedule. It's Notre Dame and UNLV. So it depends if you believe in UNLV or not, and we'll talk about them in a second. But they do have, a lot of really good starters returning. Matson Maddox, Cage Casey. Cage Casey's their starting tackle. He's a big name to watch for 2026 prospects. Possibly moving into guard. He's a really good player, though. Defense is highlighted by returners Jaden Virgin Morgan and defensive tackle Braxton Felly. Both of them were big parts of their defensive line last year. And then safety Ty Benefield is also definitely has to be mentioned. He led the team in total tackles. So this team is really good and trying to figure out, of course, everybody, the elephant in the room is Ashton Jeanty being gone, and how do you replace his 2,600 yards? That's the biggest question, really.
Yeah, and I mean, with them, they've got Malik Sherrod stepping up, and he was the backup to Jeanty last year. So, it's not like they're bringing in a guy who's learning a whole new system. They actually get to use a guy who's been learning under Jeanty. Now, obviously, does that mean he's going to be the next Ashton Jeanty? No, that's not what we're saying. But it can sometimes be easier, especially in smaller schools like this, to have a guy you've essentially a homegrown guy, if you will, instead of bringing in a transfer. That said, even with losing Ashton Jeanty, I'm really high on their quarterback Maddox, and I just don't find a game I'm really like shaking. Oh no, they might lose this one aside from Notre Dame. And then the UNLV one. But like I said, I'm just not that high on UNLV anyways, which we'll get to in a second. And I think Boise State will run the rest of the table and then win their conference championship game anyways.
Sure.
Regardless.
I think Boise State's pretty easy to break down. They are going to be one of the best teams for a non-Power 4 team. They're going to get, the most love because they made it last year. I think that they're good. I think that they could lose some games. And so we're going to talk about a team in UNLV who I think is actually good and has the schedule to make a push, 113th strength of schedule for a team that's in the top 50 in most rankings right now. Rushing style offense. They added Alex Orji. And if you remember him from the Michigan team, he's a running style quarterback. Okay, Michigan likes running the ball too, but they also want to throw the ball. This team literally is there to run the out of the ball. Like that's what they do. They run the ball. So at least Alex Orji is going to a place where his talents are going to be used. RB1 is returning, and Jaden Thomas, who had 918 yards last year, 7 touchdowns. They are going to lose, of course, Haj Malik Williams, who Alex Orji is going to be replacing, but they went to what UNLV did is they went to the transfer portal and found 17 total starters. And they were like, hey, we're going to go get some guys that we can win this conference with. Offensive line, Malik McGowan and James Feminu. Defensively, they had 9 starters, including Justin Flo out of Arizona to play linebacker and Jaheim Joseph from West Virginia to play safety. Like this team went out and just tried to get as much talent as they could. Now we have to see if it works out and if they jive.
Look,
tell us why you hate them.
This is last chance UNLV. So
sure,
if you have not heard some of these names, or if you haven't looked at their roster, you could look at it and go, wait, I remember that guy. Wait, I remember that guy. Mm-hmm. So let's play a fun game, shall we? Alex Orji, part of the worst passing room in all of the country last year. Good guy to have at quarterback.
Bottom 3, but yes.
I think they were last as a room for the whole team.
Oh, maybe. I don't know. They were 134th total, I believe.
I think 2 teams got added this year.
Okay.
to the official rankings.
Gotcha.
Tanmais Adelaide. He's been around forever and has done not a whole lot, to put it nicely. Former top 50 recruit as well. Guess what? Played for A&M, and that obviously worked out so well. Next guy, Denver Harris. Remember that name?
Yeah.
If you don't, also went to A&M. Got busted for smoking weed on the opposing team's locker room and speeding through parking garages on campus. Left, went. Oh, where'd he go next? LSU got kicked
Yeah,
off that team. Went to UTSA,
that's correct.
was told you can go ahead and keep moving. And here we are at last chance UNLV. Great guy to get on the team. Real locker room guy. Some would say he's real high energy. Yeah, I can't do it. I have reason to believe multiple starters on their defense aren't even going to be eligible by the middle of the year for their some sort of off the field or even on the field actions. So I cannot put a stamp of approval, a commitment to them being successful, not with all that going on. Now, on the flip side, they could have an absolutely historic season because they've got the guys who was forgot Justin Flo, who's been in college for like
Thank
5
you.
years and
Yes.
was supposed to be like a number one overall pick and an absolute beast on defense. And now he's not even listed as a starter on our lads. So yeah, no, can't do it. Not going to do it. Refuse to do it. You can have fun cheering for them. I will gladly watch every game, partially for Schadenfreude, partially just to see what happens, because this is an absolute experiment of a team.
Honestly, though, so last year we started this podcast talking about college football teams, and UNLV was one of the most fun team to talk about. It's just going to continue. It's literally just going to continue. They did exactly what we hoped of them, to go get all these guys and make it a shit show and make it fun. We're going to enjoy it. And that's fine. I'm okay. I'm here for the ride. I think they're good enough to go 11-1, unfortunately, because I think the Mountain West is not that good. I think that the whole situation is like they have a schedule that makes it easy enough to go 11-1. You just look at it. So the teams that I don't even know who you have them losing to 3 games. I will look at your schedule real quick because I'd love to know.
Boise
UCLA,
State,
okay.
UCLA, yeah. Give me Nico, and then Colorado State.
Okay. Well,
I think Colorado State is hard to beat on the road.
Okay, that's fine. I get it. We'll see.
And again, that's after the middle of the season where I expect half their team to no longer be eligible. So
sure. No, I get it. Just wait. You're gonna be mad. It's gonna be 11-1 UNLV. Somehow they're gonna, I don't know, make the playoffs because they're gonna beat Boise State on some fluky game-winning touchdown, and they'll be the 12th seed. It'll be crazy. You'll be mad.
If they make the playoffs,
awesome.
Denver Harris is going to get half the team arrested for partying too hard. So
doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. They made the playoffs at that
point. If you missed Last Chance U on Netflix, just watch all of UNLV season and follow them on Twitter or something. I'm sure you'll be able to basically get the same viewing experience.
We do believe that Boise State will probably be the 5th conference champion at plus 168. That's not a surprise.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of fun teams that we just talked about that have an opportunity to spoil that for Boise State if Boise State can't win those 11 games and win their conference. Going over to the last team on here has to be an independent team. That is the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. They are minus 162 to make the playoffs. They're basically a shoe-in. Their schedule is pretty sound overall. Talking about looking at it, of course, they do start off tough. Miami, bye week, Texas A&M, and that's like the really hard part of their schedule, in my opinion. Then they'll play Boise State a few weeks later, but after that, I think they pretty much run the table. No one can really touch them. Those are the 3 games that I think you should worry about. They will be starting a sophomore quarterback in CJ Carr, and he is the biggest question. No, redshirt freshman. Yeah, I was correct. Sorry.
Redshirt,
yeah. He is a serious question mark overall, but at the same time, I think that it's a serious. This is a serious team that has a ton of good players all the way around. Both their running backs are really good. They have 3 receivers in Jaden Greathouse, Faison, Malachi Fields, who came from Virginia. offensive line is a top 10 group in the country, and I just think they roll. I don't really worry about this team not making it, basically. Offensively, defensively, you can talk about guys at every level of their team on both sides of the ball. They're really good and going to be NFL players one day. It's a good football team, and they have a great coach.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I'm a big fan of Marcus Freeman as well. So, and then like you said, running back room is going to be great. Having Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price, the wide receivers should all improve from last year. Their defense is always good, and Freeman was a defensive player when he was playing, so I'm not concerned about their defense whatsoever. I mean, I think they could even lose 2 games because their schedule's not bad at all. They've definitely improved it. Just to name some of the other ones you didn't, they will be playing Arkansas as well, USC, who they play every year, Navy, Pittsburgh, who obviously improved, took a step up last year, Syracuse, even though we expect them to have more of a down year, and then they do end with Stanford. So the last few games aren't near as bad, but their first ones are very losable. Like you were saying, Arkansas, A&M, Miami. So it just depends how they come out of the gate, really. And I think all of that rides on their quarterback. You can't just have a really good running back room and good receivers, except if the defense thinks your quarterback can't get it to the receivers, they're going to key on the run. They key on the run. Those great running backs are now useless. So
Sure, yeah, but I just think
all just come down to that.
This team is going to be a top 10 team, basically, no matter what. 10-2, 11-1. I think they're still making the playoffs. And
I agree.
I mean, they're reigning national championship runner-ups. So, good football team. Not really replacing a ton at the end of the day, which is always nice. And I just think they roll.
Yep,
That's it,
I completely agree.
Yep, that's the end of our video, though. We appreciate y'all hanging out with us. We have the top 25 video coming up really soon here. We have all of our other videos out already, which is great. And then we have week 0 in a couple weeks where we're in football time. So it's happening real quick. But we appreciate y'all hanging out with us. Keep watching, keep hanging out with us, and we'll see y'all on the next one.
Thank you all very much for joining us, and feel free to drop your bold predictions below.
Yep, appreciate it. Bye.